Hi, everybody. Welcome to Trans in the AM Friendly Friday. This week I have with me Sorvia. We're going to be talking about a lot of really cool things. How you doing today, Sorvia?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I do want to thank you for taking the time to come on the show and speak with me. It really does mean a lot. So thank you for uh, thank you for being here.
Of course. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I love supporting the community and content creators especially.
Awesome. Well, yeah, good to hear. So we can just go ahead and dive on into it. I really wanted to, give a little bit of background. I've really known you mostly from your posts on Twitter and your interaction in communities like Destiny's, sometimes Vosh's too, and stuff like that. How's your experience been with that so far? Overall, positive, negative?
Um Overall positive just because of the people I've gotten to interact with through it, and I think that will outweigh any sort of negative experiences. I try to just take a step back when everything's a little too heated and just say, this is dumb online drama stuff anyways at the end of the day. There's no need to take it so personally or so seriously. So, in that sense, I'm just trying to kind of handle it better and keep it more positive.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally feel that. I'm just kind of vibing out. I saw you were taking a break from politics too, so yeah,
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. I'm just playing Minecraft and getting my vibes on, so
And that's really what matters at the end of the day is trying to get some enjoyment out of things. And if you're focusing too much on what's, you know, negatively affecting you, like you don't have to tolerate that kind of stuff. And I think that's why I took my break, is because I'm like, why am I accepting this stuff? Why am I letting these negative parts of what I'm doing affect me? And
mhm.
what can I do against that? So it was a bit of a reflective thing for me that led me to my conclusion of taking like a break, or at least handling it differently, because I was noticing like, wow, this is this doesn't need to be as awful and toxic. Like I could be having more fun and more enjoyment out of this than what I'm doing currently.
Right. No, I totally agree. I saw a couple other people were making similar moves, taking
Yeah.
a step away from more political stuff. It can be really toxic and really permeating in all aspects of your life. Like you really do, if you get like really heated with somebody online, it's hard to like not take that, back into your bedroom and take it to sleep with you and stuff like that. It's hard to like distance yourself. You have to be very well practiced in that. To really separate yourself from that in such a way where you can just have that level of engagement all the time. And I feel like with a lot of online communities, there's like a little bit of pressure to like always be engaged and always have an opinion or always have a take or something like that, always have a tweet for something. So I think it's good that more people are making a conscious effort to take a step away and focus more inward on personal growth. Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah, that's really great to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100% with what you just said too.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, that sounds good. It's a pretty recent take, so it's hard to disagree with it. But
Exactly.
yeah. Um, so we can go on to the next topic I kind of wanted
Mhm.
to talk about a little bit. I like to get an idea of each guest's experience with being trans. Like,
Okay.
how did you learn that about yourself and the process? How's that been? Stuff like that. Would you care to share a little bit about that with us?
Sure. Yeah. I would say my personal story with it is only a couple of years old. I was a junior in college when I kind of discovered the transgender community fully and began delving into the question of gender and my own gender. And I ended that conclusion with, being transgender. So it's only been, well, I feel old. It's only been like 3 or 4 years since then. So it's still relatively, new, I would say, for me. And even in that, I've only been like publicly 100% fully out for about a little a little over a year. So still fresh and everything. Um, uh, I came to the like conclusion of that, just kind of like maybe somehow how some other people do, reading stories and understanding other trans people and how they came to their own realizations and realizing that I had this shared experience with gender that they did and realizing like, oh wow, I'm not the only one who feels this way. I'm not the only one who had these thoughts, throughout my life. And for me, that was like, it was this eye-opening, realization that was also just really distressing because I also understood the weight behind what that meant. Um, and so ever since then, it's been, like I said, it's only been a couple years, but to me, it feels like a longer journey. And I feel like a lot of other trans people would agree that it, it feels like a long journey no matter how many years it's been.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Um, my journey just started this year.
Oh,
And it's
really?
yeah,
That's
back
great.
in March or no, February I think it was. So it's great to hear your perspective since you have like a number of years kind of leading up to being out, even though that's a relatively new experience for you. If you don't mind my asking, is your family supportive?
It's a little complicated
Okay.
because my parents are very conservative, socially conservative. They voted for Trump. They've been Republicans all their lives, at least in the US. My mom is not from this country. She immigrated here before I was born. And going through this experience with them has not been easy. It hasn't been as hard as it can be for other people in my situation. And they do accept me. They do at least attempt to be correct about my name or my pronouns. But they're not perfect. They still kind of disagree on a high level. But I guess I've gotten lucky in that they understand that in order to keep me in their lives, that this is something that they just have to work with.
Yeah.
It helps to be an only child.
Yeah. I suppose that would help as well.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that they're making an attempt. It's hard for a lot of people, especially if they have deeply held conservative beliefs. I know a lot of people that grew up that way. I came from a deeply held conservative area myself, so there were lots and lots of my friends and teachers, coworkers, all kinds of people. It's been difficult to navigate, but out west, not so much. It's pretty accepting. So yeah, happy to be here.
That's what matters, really.
Yeah, right, right. Just happiness is all that really matters. Well, good. I do think that's a really important perspective, and I thank you for sharing that with us. Um,
No problem.
do you have? I know personally, I've met a lot of really cool people in the trans community, especially as of late.
Mhm.
A lot of really nice, kind, honest, genuine, and supportive people. Um, have you had a similar experience?
Um, no one from the trans community itself,
Mhm.
but I've been very lucky to kind of unconsciously like pick to associate, like choose to associate with some people that have just been so like supportive and loving throughout the whole thing. And I think that's part of what has led to what I personally deem a successful like transitioning coming out. Um, and I have people at work, people in my personal life, um and it's been great. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's very good to hear. Um, I don't know if you have any kind of similar experiences lately, but A big topic that a lot of my friends have been talking about lately is like using public bathrooms and stuff with all
Mhm.
of the like, there's new legislation coming out of Texas all the time, of course. Um, but like one story, like there's just so many stories of people just having to, just go without for hours on end because they don't want to risk going into a public restroom and perhaps getting that kind of attention. And that's really unfortunate. I hope we see some change.
I think it's a fear that every trans person has, no matter how, uh, no matter what they think about themselves at a confidence level or a security level. You're always going to kind of have that in the back of your head that it can really happen to any of us, you know, um, pre-transition to, out passing, levels of surgery, etc. Like it doesn't, um, yeah, it happens to everyone, I think would be the better way to put it. And funny that we talk about this because one of the great things about where I work is that since coming out, I've been, kind of tapped as a resource for the company to kind of come to with, ideas and questions and just getting my input on policies or anything that the workplace is trying to do about trans issues. And recently I was privileged to be consulted regarding like a training for like diversity and inclusion like initiatives that goes over like a scenario where there's like a microaggression happening towards a trans person and the top and like the context of it was the bathroom thing. And so I had a chance to like educate them on like what an actual like bathroom situation looks like and got them to kind of I don't know what they decided on, but I did kind of contest their scenario and had them like rework it and rethink it based on like what actual trans people go through related to bathrooms. Because I think cis people don't have a fully 100% accurate view of what it actually entails and what it feels like.
Right. No, that's really good. I'm very happy to hear that. Wow, how progressive of your company. That makes me happy.
Yeah. They hired a fantastic I mean, she's cis, but, I mean, they hired a fantastic, ally, as a consultant regarding, like, LGBT issues, and she's very educated, has, like, family her parents, I believe, are some form of non-binary and trans, and, she's been, like, a pretty well-supported voice within the company and, like, has actual sway in terms of these kinds of things. So it's been kind of like it's nice to have someone like in an inner circle
Mhm.
that I can kind of talk to. And we even have like people even higher up than her whose like children are trans, right? So they have a very personal stake in making sure that the company that they work at is, fully doing the best it can with the issue. So it is possible for companies to do these things, even if they're not perfect, and sometimes have to be told very sternly, like, "I think
Yeah.
this is shit." You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes it does take a stern hand to get the point across, but
Mhm.
I'm very glad that they tapped his resource. That is such a good idea. I mean, obviously, you want to ask your trans employees what they think of their trans policies.
Crazy idea,
I
talking to
know.
trans people about things that affect us.
I could go into it, but we're staying away from politics, so I'm not
Yeah.
going to. Oh, okay. Anyway, yeah. So, well, we can move on to the next topic.
Mhm.
Do you have any big interests or hobbies or anything or any projects that you're working on that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, dear. No, I wish I could say I could, but the, downside to where I work is that it's extremely busy, at various parts of the years, and it makes having hobbies really difficult. I've personally wanted to start something like streaming or doing more with the kind of, decent platform I've managed to get, but nothing's hit the ground yet. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, maybe one day when I'm not working, till 11 o'clock at night.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, that must make it hard. Do you do like more than like 10-hour days or something like that?
Yeah, I like to give
Ah,
people like a range of like 60 to 80 hours for like a couple of months during the year.
mhm.
Right now, like between October and like up until Christmas is going to be like pretty much those kind of hours. And then afterwards, until May, it's going to be anywhere between 55 and, 70 or 80.
Ah, goodness. Ooh,
Yeah.
wow. Well, my heart goes out to you. I hope you don't work
Thank
yourself to the
you.
bone. Uh,
I'm radically opposed to letting work destroy me. So I will do whatever it takes within the bounds of not getting fired for it to make sure I survive.
very good, very good. Yeah, I mean, I think personally, a nice hot bath with a good amount of bath bombs, ah, you really like just relaxes all of the tension.
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. I'm just too tall for my bathtub, so I feel like
oh,
every time I've tried to take a bath, my legs are just poking out of the water or, like, my knees are above the water, and I feel like I'm not getting the full experience that I deserve.
oh,
So I
I'm
can't
sorry.
take the bath route, but you listen, alcohol is a tried and true method of
Ah, there you go. Yeah, that works too.
yourself for a period of time, and I keep it moderated, so
Right.
not going overboard on that one either.
Ah, I had a bad experience with that recently. I don't want to go into too much, but oh, it was very embarrassing.
I was just saying earlier to someone else, is it really an experience of alcohol if you don't feel some modicum of, like, embarrassment or regret afterwards?
Right? Yeah, I guess
Did
I
you really
guess
drink?
that's true. That's true. 2 beers not enough. You have to go full tilt.
That's right.
6 to 12.
Or you
There you go.
or you might as well not drink at all, you know?
Yeah, what's the point? But well, that's good. Do you play any like games or anything? Do you watch any other streams or anything like that in your downtime?
Yeah, unfortunately, I do play video games. Well, fortunate to some, unfortunate to others.
Mhm.
I play a lot of role-playing games. I stereotypically play grand strategy games. Um, I play a lot, honestly. I used to play MMOs, but I've been kind of out of that recently.
Mhm.
I've been playing a little bit of League of Legends. Back for Blood is, that came out recently, and so a bunch of friends have asked me to play that with them.
Mhm.
So I do that, and then, besides like the occasional Destiny like stream or YouTube video I just get bored and want to watch. I realized I don't know if you know Critical Role, but they
Mhm.
just started their third campaign of Dungeons and Dragons, and I was like, oh, perfect! I didn't get to really catch up with the first two, so maybe
Yeah.
I can finally like put this on while I'm working and enjoy some really good, Dungeons and Dragons content while I work at Excel and stare at a computer screen all day.
Yeah, I mean, what better way to do it? That's the way I used
Yeah.
to consume it. My friend and I used to work at a for a word processing company, I guess you would call it. We did,
Mhm.
yeah, it was basically just working in Word and PDFs all day, just back and
Oh,
forth, back
Jesus.
and forth. Yeah, I mean, they were like, hey, if you want to bring in music and listen to music, by all means, come on, bring in music. And so a lot of us
I
just
love
listen
that.
to like podcasts because like podcasts were just starting to take off, really.
Yep.
And he was listening to Critical Role, and a bunch of my other friends were listening to. Do you remember Welcome to Night Vale?
Ooh, no, I don't think I do. Who did that one?
I can't remember the name of the people that were behind it,
Yeah.
but it was like an old cult story about a radio DJ in a weird town where all this paranormal stuff happens.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it was pretty interesting.
Huh,
Um, it had a big cult following. Um, like you can go on Etsy and find all kinds of merch for Welcome to Night
really?
Vale. Yeah.
Oh, so cool. Yeah, the podcast format really is great for all of those things, and I'm always surprised at, like, how absorbed people get into all kinds of podcasts, not just things like Critical Role. Like, it's it's crazy to me. I'm not crazy about podcasts in general, but like
Mhm.
things like Critical Role and stuff, like it's good. I was gonna say I used whenever I used to commute before COVID, I used to always put on some form of like, podcast or something to listen to. Um, it's just a useful way to turn your commute into something productive.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I used to listen to I was a delivery driver for a while too, and I would listen to
Oh.
like my radio was constantly tuned to NPR. I was always listening to public
Oh,
radio and news programs and stuff like that. So,
gotcha.
um
Yeah.
yeah, I was
NPR, yeah.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I know a couple other people who, like, listen to NPR as, like, their thing that they do, and,
Mhm.
sometimes it would be on while, like, I was around, and, I don't know if I could listen to it for, like, too long, but it does seem like they do cover some good topics and stuff on there, so should probably try it out someday. So, thank you for
Yeah.
reminding me about that.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. No, I think it's definitely got more of a liberal tune
Mhm,
to it. So I feel like a lot more people would appreciate it now, I guess,
mhm.
since everybody's taken a step away from Twitter politics. That's not a bad idea. But
Yeah. That's a
it,
good point. I think people do need to start getting their politics from somewhere. Twitter is definitely not a good place to get your politics,
yeah,
and news from.
right. No, I totally agree. Not a reputable news source, twitter.com.
Yeah.
It's a good way to keep pulse on like social issues and stuff, but
Yeah.
um, other than that, no, I wouldn't base any factual. I would just take the 4chan slogan, right, and apply it to Twitter, right?
Mm.
Don't take anything posted here seriously, or you're a fool, or something like that. I can't remember. It's been like a decade since I've been on 4chan.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. Um, I'm anti 4chan, pro, at least consuming healthier versions of social media, whatever you wanna call Twitter and 4chan and Reddit. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, the problem with Twitter is you have verified accounts and authorized people, giving very
Oh,
serious takes, which makes it hard to get that word out that, hey, we need to stop taking Twitter so seriously.
yeah.
So still better
I.
than Facebook or Instagram. I will
That's
hold,
true.
I will have that opinion.
Yeah. I deleted my Facebook like 6 years ago. I was
Smart.
just done with it. Like, and I feel like the year that I deleted it, I left all of that like toxic energy just totally behind. I just left it in the past, and
Oh
it feels
yeah.
so relieving. I don't know. It's good.
Facebook takes what makes Twitter bad and then like makes it 10 times worse. Because you have, the misinformation and stuff that's radicalizing your grandfather into becoming like a Trumpy Nazi. And then you have um, groups where you have different like cliques organizing and creating their own little bubbles where they don't know how to interact with other people anymore. And next thing that's how I fell down, a rabbit hole of bad politics and a bad space that honestly, that's how I'm able to tolerate Twitter so much is because I've dealt with worse. So I keep reminding myself, like, at least I'm not on Facebook. And at least that I'm not in this group and setting anymore.
Yeah, it can be hard. You really need to like, even on Twitter, I think you need to highly curate your experience. I think you need to limit the number of people you're following. I think it's nice to like, I don't know, feel like you're rewarding people for following you with a follow themselves, but like it also completely clutters your timeline, changes the kind of stuff you're going to see, and like you leave so much more up to chance. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, 10,000%. That's why I stopped like in, following. When I follow someone back, it's probably because I've taken the measure of like, have I interacted with them? How do they interact with me?
Mhm.
and then I go from there. I try not to throw around follows anymore with people, and I've significantly cut back.
Oh, yeah.
And it has helped, but the problem is that if you get a lot more the more followers you get, just the more visible you are, and you're always just gonna find people who aren't even following you, just interacting with you or subtweeting you or doing something about you, and then you have to decide whether see it and just look away or whether you block them, and that's how you start getting a negative experience on Twitter.
Yeah. I could see that. I'd really like to, go into that a little bit more with you if you don't mind.
Sure.
Um, how has your Twitter experience changed as your account's grown?
It's gotten worse. Um, I'm still in a good spot. I think there's like a diminishing returns to like Twitter followers and having a platform on a site like Twitter. I think once you get into really high numbers, like 10,000 or so, I think your experience is, I don't know how anybody puts up with it past that without extreme measures, strictly curating what they're doing. Because right now, um, it's hard. It's hard because, like I said, you get visible, and suddenly people have opinions about you, and sometimes you have no idea why they have an opinion about you because you didn't interact with them, or they saw a tweet of yours. It just feels weird. You start to feel like you're being like dehumanized, not in like a uh, not in like a malicious sense, but just the fact that you're being seen more and more as like a more public figure, and that gives people like comfort over having like an opinion about you or talking about you in some way or even being like negative towards you because well you have this many followers. Why shouldn't I talk about you?
Yeah, that's interesting. I could see that how it kind of like slowly does that almost dehumanization process. And that's rough. Um,
Mhm.
I know there was another. I'm sure you're familiar. Celine. You know Celine.
Yes, I do.
Uh, she was at one point. She was like, "No, I want to go back to having a small account," and just completely, yeah, went back and has a small account now.
Yeah, I remember that. Although last time I checked, I think she's grown still.
Yeah.
I think she's hit like over 1,000 again, or maybe I'm wrong and or saw the numbers wrong. But it's hard. Like unless you stay like a private account, I feel like it's almost impossible to prevent your growth,
Mhm.
especially if you're known at that point. Like it's like if I were to delete my account and start over again, if I go by Sorvia in any way, I feel like it'd be really hard for me to stop myself from getting like somewhere, so like 1,000, 2,000, whatever. I feel like it would just happen regardless of whether I wanted it to or not.
Right.
So there is that like permanence to it, I guess.
Hmm. And people have that like image of you in their head that whether you like have ever interacted with them or not, like it is a little kind of a little disconcerting to think about, honestly.
Yeah, I, I relate to bigger platforms who also talk about this issue where everybody has like an opinion about you and it feels almost like you're not allowed to, or recognize that, or you're not allowed to acknowledge that or give pushback on it because, they're small and you're big. And it's it's tough to wrap your head around it, especially if you're not like, it just kind of happened that I grew this many followers, and in my case, I don't even have like a YouTube or Twitch, right? So
Hmm.
it's just purely off of like my tweets or personality or whatever reason someone has for following me. It's not about like any specific content that I'm putting out there. It's just about me. And so it feels like you're not ready for it. No one gives you like a primer on like, hey, this is what happens when you get a platform. This is what people are going to do to you, and this is how you're supposed to like. It's just really hard to process because I have feelings. It's really weird to see people have like this totally different perception of me than I could ever expect someone to have. And how do I like? What am I supposed to do about it? You know? It almost
Yeah.
feels like if I were to, like, go around trying to combat it, it feels like I'm obsessed with myself, and then, if I ignore it, it's like, "Oh, well, she doesn't care about, what people think of her, or she's shameless or something," right?
Hmm.
You can't win, and
Yeah.
I'm still kinda I think part of, like, these past couple weeks and months for me has just been trying to find, like, a solution that works for me, with that.
Yeah, I can totally see that. For me, it's been better to kind of separate my friends into Discord. And so it's just so happened that most of the people that I talk with on Twitter and respect on Twitter and stuff, I also share Discords with, and we hang out and play games and stuff like that. And I think it's good to kind of separate that and not consider you know most of that interaction on Twitter as like more serious, but also kind of like just be able to turn it off, and go back to like hanging out with your friends in your safer place in your Discord or wherever you're more comfortable, wherever it's not more public. Um, and I think it's good to have like a limited group of people you trust and stuff. So yeah, certainly, I agree 100%. And I'm kind of nervous if any of this if this like actually builds into anything about like how I'm gonna deal with talking about people or hearing people talk about me or stuff. So it's good to get your perspective. I really do thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Like I said, no one gives you like a primer, so um, you just kind of have to hope someone talks, authentically about it. And I think that's what I want to try and do, which is why I moved more into trying to have personal conversations with people that are having like an issue with me or disagreeing with me, rather than taking it on Twitter, where the dehumanization just only gets worse when people are upset with you or disagreeing with you in the moment. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Well, I think that's another thing that often gets lost in Twitter discourse is that I don't have to agree with like every single take you have to like you or respect you or want to hang out with you or anything like that. Like it's like we don't have to meet eye to eye on 100% of issues. But if you're like I don't know, if you're actively harmful, like actively transphobic or actively racist or something like that, yeah,
Mm,
probably not going to want to associate with you. But I mean, I don't know.
yeah, and that's tough, right? Because that's where the issues can kind of run into is some people will think like you're transphobic, and you will not agree with them because obviously like I know myself, like I don't think I'm transphobic, but then I've seen some people claim that I'm transphobic. I've seen people say a lot of things about me, whether it's like I'm racist or transphobic or something. And I'm just wondering where they even got that perception from at that point. But yeah, it's tough with that because unless you're being harmful, like there's a bigger platform, you have to worry about like, oh crap, like I don't want people to think that I'm like this and no longer associate with me because they think I'm harmful. And that's when you kind of feel like, well, now I have to say something. And then if you say something, it's like, wow, why is she so, obsessed with herself? Why does she take this so seriously? And then, like I said, it gets you into that there's no 100% correct answer. And no matter what you do, there's always going to be something or someone that comes up and has a, something happens.
Yeah, I think that in and of itself is good advice. Just make peace with the fact that there are going to be people that don't like you, that are upset with you, that have a grudge against you for seemingly no reason. And I think, yeah, I think a lot of discourse does get lost in like time constraints and character constraints. I've been talking with a bunch of friends, and my position right now is that a lot of this online discourse and stuff boils down to a miscommunication because two people have two separate definitions of one word and refuse to like compromise and find common ground. So, it's just, I think it's a problem of the platform. I think it's too limiting for that level of discourse. And, I know we keep going back to it, but I'm really glad to see more people take it a step away and just vibing out and being themselves and stuff. That's kind of, what I want to focus on Twitter. And so I'm happy to see that from others.
That's great. Yeah. We do need more of it because the more of us that can do that and take that step back, or at least try and practice better, like better behavior, the less awful Twitter can be, and hopefully the more of us that can get along with each other. Because there's been a lot of bridges burnt on Twitter because of what you just described, some semantical argument that's just rolled into a whole bunch of other things that people think about each other, and very petty back and forths. And look, I'm not here to preach from like a high ground, because I've definitely found myself caught in the middle of it. But that's the problem with Twitter, is it's so easy to get caught up in it. And I don't try to lay the blame 100% on the individual, because that platform just feeds on that behavior, and it incentivizes that behavior with what you just said: short character limits, and discussion that just is not conductive towards healthy discourse.
Yeah, I agree. It is certainly it feeds into itself. It is a cyclical. I guess I got that word right. Cyclical
Yep,
kind of
you
thing
got it.
here, where it seems like I don't know. All it takes is just like one person to just like strike a match and be like, oh, let's bring up its discourse again. And I'm gonna set the whole forest on fire. And now you've got Hassan's in the middle. I just yeah,
Yeah, yeah, but I just see, that's the when you asked how my night was doing, and I was like, "Oh, it's not awful, but it's not, peaceful and restful."
yeah,
That's because of that discourse. I haven't seen the Hassan stuff in particular, but in my own groups that I interact with off of Twitter, that has come up. So it's like you can't escape it. Even when you go off
yeah,
Twitter, it's happening somewhere else. Unfortunately, it just like you just at that point, you just have to get off the computer and do something else with your night. But,
yeah,
um,
yeah. I agree. No, I've had arguments in my friend groups about it. But overall, I think my position is just like I don't know, just respect people and don't like cause a whole fuss. If you don't like it, that's fine. Just try to use their name or something, and then maybe just like I don't know, don't try not to associate with them anymore if
yeah,
you don't like them that much, if it makes you that uncomfortable. But I don't know.
yeah. I mean, see, that's what I hate right here, is because it's like, even
Yeah,
trying to give our own take, it's like we're already in this position of like, okay, how do I say this so that it's
yeah,
not taken, like, even outside of Twitter, it's hard to, talk about some topics without walking on eggshells. Which is not a good sign for just conversations in general. Like, yeah, we're talking about how Twitter is a problem, but it's happening offline too. It's happening on, places where people are talking with like their voices, and or, one on one outside of text. And if we can't even do that, then yeah, no wonder people are so like polarized and so easily antagonized. So we're just not capable of having conversation.
yeah. I agree. I think more common ground would be found if people approached it from a conversational style in good faith and didn't want to like But I think that's the problem with a lot of this Twitter discourse is people don't really want to approach it in good faith.
No,
So,
no, and, I hate to use the words like both sides, but what you do have is that on both sides of discourse like this, you have a side that's very aggressively defendant of their side, and they're gonna, you know, kind of go on a crusade about whatever they think. And like I said, it's both sides too. So people who are aggressively against or for, neo pronouns or its are going to go out there and they're not going to have conversation because they've tied too much stake into into it, I guess that's part of the problem is that people tie too much of their own personal being into a discourse. And I get that for some people that's because it is.
mhm.
But in order to have productive discourse you have to then disconnect yourself from it. And that's where I think the struggle is for some people is they think that they're justified for it to be personal, therefore why should I disconnect myself from it in order to talk to someone about it?
Yeah.
So maybe we need to untangle that knot first before we can have good conversations.
Yeah, and I think promoting more like one-on-one conversations, more long form like sit down discussions, kind of like I don't want to really cite him as an example because I don't like him too much, but Joe Rogan, I guess, where he just like has a guest and they interview. I mean, he's got other people that chime in from time to time or whatever, but
Mhm.
something like that where it's a more focused kind of like one-on-one. I think that's the way to really settle a lot of this political discourse. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a great way to solve the problem of not having an outlet for it, and also needing content to put out. I think.
Mhm.
I think it would be a good way to solve both of those problems, because with one-on-one conversations, you can schedule those and you can record them and stagger them out throughout the week. I mean, that's what I'm doing. So like I don't know. I think like that's probably the more productive way. If you want to get to the bottom of something, if you want to actually have a good faith conversation, you've got to find people who are willing to engage in good faith and just lay out all the problems that each other has and come to some kind of like common
Yeah.
ground agreement. So I mean,
Yeah.
I also think that like Twitter kind of puts you in a place where like Twitter communities in general put you in a place where you demand perfection, you demand purity from everyone. If they're faulty in one way, they're faulty in all ways, and they've been poisoned, and they must be exiled from the group. And I don't
Yeah.
think that's great. I don't think you have to agree with everybody. I think at the end of the day, you can like find some like common ground you have to be good at interpreting harm. I think that's the important part. If you can tell whether somebody is doing something in good faith or not, or has bad intentions, I think that's the important thing to recognize rather than what position they take on a certain issue or something like that, because if they can be moved, and that's the important thing.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that because that's the realization that I've come to, or perhaps where I realized my frustration with everything is coming from, is that no, I wouldn't say my values necessarily have changed significantly, but at least my outlook or my prescriptions have changed since I've been on Twitter. And part of the problem that I ran into that was really contributing towards all the things I mentioned before was that I developed an opinion or changed my opinion in some way. And that became no longer acceptable with the group that I used to kind of found myself grouped with. And it just, everything started from there because of what you just described. Because I like Destiny, or, oh, because I have this take on this gender topic. People start to see me as like this increasingly flawed individual because I started X, Y, and Z. And I hate it so much. I hate like, why are we talking about people in that way? Did I become like a harmful individual who is not good faith at all and has no good like values or principles on the inside? No. But yet, because of these like very superficial issues, I'm being seen and talked about in that way, and I can't fight it because I'm unfortunately for the people who hate me, like, I am genuine about this stuff, and I am
Mhm.
authentic, and you can hate me for it, but, like, I'm not gonna just change to be accepted again, or I'm not gonna just gonna change, to make people like me more, and it's a struggle because I think a lot of people do have, like, just a want to be seen positively, and it doesn't conflate well with a social media platform that does purity and labels you as like a heretic or an apostate because you've changed in some way.
Right. I think we saw a lot of that grow out of like some of the more politically engaged users. The more the usually the ones that were posting a lot and driving this attitude of, oh, well, you know, this person did this one thing, which means that means they're working for this group and that all of the things that they're doing are to undermine all of our values and we should exile them too. And like, it's kind of caught on and people are applying that to their own communities and their own interactions with people, and it makes me sad because as long as you approach things from a good faith perspective, you should be able to like iron out any like small minute differences you have with somebody. I mean, you just have to really think, is it worth it? Is it worth it? I have limited time left on this earth. Is it worth my time if I have a problem with like, oh, you like Destiny? I'm not that fond of Destiny. I don't care if you like Destiny or not. That's not like it doesn't affect my opinion of you at all. Like
Right.
it's because I know that you can approach things in good faith and come to that discussion where, you know, whatever differences we have, we can sort out. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. Again, that's that I threw my hands up today and was like, why the heck am I doing this to
yeah.
myself? Why am I tolerating this? And I put into place that policy of just like, hey, if you want to have a serious conversation, let's take it outside of Twitter. I actually did have that with someone. I think I just tweeted about it before we started.
Oh,
And it was great because I think they expected me to kind of come in swinging or have this attitude or tone, and I think it was refreshing to them to have me come in and be like, hey, what's going on, like, what do you want to talk about specifically? Oh, you have an issue with this tweet, what specifically about it, and then here's my explanation.
yeah.
And as long as I leave that conversation with
Oh,
fine. Did I freeze?
yeah. Sorry, just for a second. As long as you leave the conversation with a
With a mutual understanding, that like, okay, they understand what I mean, I understand what they mean. They don't agree still, but that's okay because I'm not going to convince everyone and I don't go into everything trying to convince everyone. But, having a great end to the conversation where we understand each other is a lot better than going like, oh, they're dumb or oh, uncharitable readings of each other. So, they were happy with it, I was happy with it. It was, like, a great kind of vindication for me about my feelings, like, I'm doing the right thing by keeping this like that.
yeah. I agree. I think it really is the right perspective to take and the right attitude to have going forward. Um, I don't know if you've ever heard of something like this, but a while back, my friend group had this game that was meant to be played. It had 5 stacks of cards, and on each stack was a symbol. So you'd have like a stack of squares, a stack of stars, so on and so forth.
Okay.
And on each card on the other side was written a question, a very uncomfortable question, a difficult question, one that you would not really expect most people to answer.
Okay.
And you would basically roll a die, and whatever the die landed on, you would get to pick. And each symbol correlated to a certain topic, right? Like politics or family or religion or sex or something like that. And you would just draw a card and you would answer the question. And we kind of played it, and the first round would go, and if anybody was like treating it like Cards Against Humanities, we knew we couldn't really take them seriously, because you were meant to approach it from like an honest, like kind of laying your heart out on your sleeve or something like that, and just
Okay.
answer honestly. So that was kind of like our way to judge whether somebody was really worth engaging with or not. It seems kind of weird talking about
Yeah.
it, but it was a lot of fun.
It's intense. It sounds
Yeah,
intense.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think it is a good sort of like test. That I mean that pretty much is what it is, right? Is like it's less about your responses and more about what are you comfortable with sharing and
right.
you know how do you react to what other people share. That's kind of like a multi-dimensional kind of thing. And
Yeah,
that's cool.
absolutely.
I've never heard of that before though.
Oh,
Never.
really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Maybe
I
I
can't.
just maybe nobody plays good games where I am, but no, I've never heard of
We were into some really obscure board games there for a while.
them.
There was a nice bar out next to where I lived, that had wall to wall board games, and all of their drinks on tap were themed after like Dungeons and Dragons stuff.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
yeah, they had a cool little thing where you could like roll a d20, and whatever it landed on would be your drink, but you would get like $2 off of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so I feel like I've heard of that. I don't know, maybe there's multiple of these types of,
Mm-hmm.
like, themes of bar, but I've always wanted to go to one that was, like, dedicated in that way, so I'm very
Oh yeah.
jealous.
Oh, it was such a good time. We really enjoyed ourselves there. I think that was about it. Did you have any other topics you wanted to maybe talk about tonight?
No, I think we hit the nail on the head. I think we hit everything, relevant, and, I think we covered some good ground.
Cool. Well, yeah, I do really appreciate you coming on. I really enjoyed our conversation. And of course, you're always welcome back on anytime you like. So, yeah, thank you for
Of
taking the
course,
time to be here.
and thank you for having me. This is
Of
great.
course. Yeah, my pleasure. Well, thank you all for coming out to Friendly Friday. We'll see you all next Monday for the usual. Once again, take care and have a good night.